Did you know that most vitamin D3 supplements come from sheep's wool? I'm Kat, founder of Ritual. We're making traceability the new standard for the supplement industry. When I was pregnant, I couldn't find a multivitamin I could trust, so I created my own. Ours is made traceable, third-party tested, and clean label project certified. Oh, and our vitamin D3? It comes from sustainably harvested lichen from England, not sheep. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/podcast. Have you heard about the 2018 study that showed half of prenatal vitamins tested had unacceptable levels of heavy metals? No? Well, now you have. I'm Kat, mother of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company making traceability the new standard in the supplement industry. I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and finding all these things I was trying to avoid. High amounts of heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and unnecessary ingredients. So, at 4 months pregnant, I quit my job and started Ritual because I believe that all women deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. I'm so proud of our prenatal vitamin. The ingredients are 100% traceable, it's third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals, and recently received the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project. You see, we trace like a mother because, let's be honest, no one cares quite like a mother. But don't just take my word for it. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/prenatal.
Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work. Grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work. Grind, shine, never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Carl Lee, where sports, culture, and community intersect. Join Carl and frequent co-host Hollis Lewis as they dive into engaging conversations with guests from all walks of life. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Let the conversation begin on Let's Talk.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk with Carl Lee. And my co-host Hollis Lewis and Lisa Odie are here. And
hello. Hello, hello.
And we have a very, very interesting conversation that we've had since we actually got into the studio. When we got into the building, we've been kind of talking a little bit about
injunctions.
Well,
the word of the day.
Injunctions have been
word of the month.
Have been for sure. That's the subject. The SSAC and football programs around the state. It seems to me, Hollis, and you're our expert on this. Like,
well, I won't say expert. I just done a little research. Yeah,
I'm going to make the case, Hollis, that one of the things that I've heard someone say, having the best interest of the athletes in mind, or trying to focus on that. Mm-hmm. Personally, I don't see that being the case, but I'll come back to that as you kind of enlighten us a little bit, give us a little bit of background of where we're at.
And I want to start from the beginning, because obviously we're going to talk about the playoff postponement and delays and Supreme Court and different things of that nature. But I feel like we have to set a tone because, again, this isn't like a single event.
Right.
This spawned from the very beginning, and to me, if we look at it, it's really no surprise where we're at now, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think earlier this year, maybe even sometime last year, they were in discussions about having a quad A, which is a quad A, triple A, single A, double A system in West Virginia for football. Now, they've done this with basketball for the last couple of years, but I think what we have to remember about basketball is that there's more schools playing basketball and less players. So far as that, I could see that, and it probably wouldn't be as big a problem because it would create more competitive balance, which that was the point of this. But I think from what we're seeing now is that it's almost done the opposite.
Absolutely.
It's done the opposite of creating competitive balance.
And Lisa, we've talked several times about scores.
Yes.
And there's no way I would have ever thought playing high school football that I would be playing on a team that's going to score 80 points or is going to get 80 points scored on them.
Yeah.
That just was never going to happen. And I'll even go even further. I'm not sure that the talent that we were going to go against would not be better than what it is now.
Yeah.
Right. And I think our assumption when we saw these scores, at least now I'm educated, thank you, Hollis, on how the point system works for the playoff rankings.
And we'll get into detail about that.
Yes. But I think at the time, whenever we were under the assumption, you and I, Carl, that you got points for the playoffs rankings if you scored a certain amount in your actual play of a game.
Right. Absolutely.
And so we thought, okay, there's a reason why these teams are kicking onside kicks and throwing passes in the fourth quarter while they're up 40, 50 points. So we kind of gave some grace to those teams that were behaving that way, thinking, okay, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it to gain points for the playoffs. And then we come across the system and how it works, and we see nothing of the sort as far as, how many points you score in a game to be able to, connect it to your ranking for the playoffs. So we're kind of I'm disappointed in that because I felt like there was a reason why some of these teams were doing the things that they were doing on the field as far as, in play against other teams going up 40, 50 points was because of the playoff rankings. And now that you see that there really wasn't a legitimate reason to be doing those types of things, I'm kind of disappointed in that.
Right.
And here's the thing.
Well,
though,
let me say this too.
Because, we're going to talk about the points, but far as why they went to 4A, because when we look at 4A, you have 1.5 million people in West Virginia. West Virginia is losing 5,000 students per year. There was absolutely no justification, in addition to what you just said as far as competitive balance, which they haven't created.
Mm-hmm.
No, not at all.
And we'll talk about the
Opposite.
conference, and that was a mess up too, as far as how it relates to what's going on now. But if we're losing 5,000 students per year, we have 1.5, 1.6 million people in the state, and we're losing our just total population. There was no reason. West Virginia is not big enough to have a 4-class system. We're just not.
Right.
So all the justifications that they gave originally, it just didn't. It doesn't make sense.
And don't you think though, for the average parent of a kid who plays, a high school fan of the sport, an adult, speaking of the adults, not necessarily the kids, they are not educated on any of this. And so in out front, this might have looked good. Oh, my we're 4A.
Yeah, it does look good.
It looks and sounds good.
And that's the only thing
That's
it does.
the only thing it does.
Because once you get to the numbers don't justify us doing this. In a sport like football, again, basketball, baseball, those are different sports. You have less players. It's different. So I can see the competitive balance being pertinent within those sports. But when you're talking about a football where you got to at least have 30 to 40 kids, like I said, we're consolidating schools every day.
Right.
Every day we hear about consolidations
because of low numbers.
Because of low numbers.
Right.
So like you're doing this off the top didn't make sense.
Yeah, you're trying to grow the football level while the student level is dropping.
And the thing is, you can't even say that because you're not growing anything. All you're doing is just you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're moving the puzzle pieces around, right?
Well, you could and couldn't you, Lisa? To that point, I think as soon as 4A came out and all these teams were in 4A, what was the first thing that happened? We're moving back down to AAA, or we're moving from triple to double.
Right.
And
double
that's
to
the
single.
next point. The next point is that the next thing that happened in August, right in the beginning of the season, is that you had 11 schools. You had 11 schools file injunctions, word of the day, injunctions, to get back to the lower conference, right? And the justifications was that, again, how they determined the classification level, this is more confusing than geometry. They did like 80% with enrollment, and they split the last 20% between your actual location and the socioeconomic status of the area in which your school was placed in, whether it was urban, city, rural, which is convoluted, complicated, and really didn't necessarily make sense.
I want to know who came up with this because, the AAA, AA, single A, that alignment served us for years. In fact, it served us back when I was in school and beyond that. And we had more population then. So where in the world did we find a reason to even look at this and start this whole movement to do Quad A?
And that's kind of the point. So we looking at the very beginning of this, not only is there not a point to do it, but then when you actually, the implementation of it didn't make sense.
No.
So factor one, why did you do it? It really didn't need to happen, right? And the reason in which you stated, it created the opposite effect. Mm-hmm. And then the implementation of it, when you go to these factors as far as developing who's going to be in which classification, that doesn't make sense.
Is it? And I was reading up on this. Someone makes the comment that we're looking out for the betterment of the athlete. I buy that in theory, but I think the system in which you're creating isn't for the kid. It's for you as a because if we have Quad A, oh gosh, West Virginia's got Quad A. We've been AAA for as long as we've been,
right.
and it has served us well.
Yeah,
and the moment we go Quad A, all of a sudden.
We don't have enough teams to have a Quad A class.
And when was the last time? When's the last time you saw 80 points in a high school game?
But right. I think that's becoming a little bit more common with the pace in which teams score. So I'm not necessarily hung up on that. The thing is that what I'm saying is that if you're going to create a 4A system to a single A system, again. I did the average, and there's 115, 116 teams. So you can have about 28 teams per conference. But if you're going to do that, the implementation has to be tight. So that way you don't have these 11 injunctions, and now you throw the numbers off.
Okay, so
have you heard about the 2018 study that showed half of prenatal vitamins tested had unacceptable levels of heavy metals? No? Well, now you have. I'm Kat, mother of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company making traceability the new standard in the supplement industry. I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and finding all these things I was trying to avoid. High amounts of heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and unnecessary ingredients. So, at 4 months pregnant, I quit my job and started Ritual because I believe that all women deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. I'm so proud of our prenatal vitamin. The ingredients are 100% traceable, it's third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals, and recently received the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project. You see, we trace like a mother because, let's be honest, no one cares quite like a mother. But don't just take my word for it. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/prenatal. Did you know that most vitamin D3 supplements come from sheep's wool? I'm Kat, founder of Ritual. We're making traceability the new standard for the supplement industry. When I was pregnant, I couldn't find a multivitamin I could trust, so I created my own. Ours is made traceable, third-party tested, and Clean Label Project certified. Oh, and our vitamin D3? It comes from sustainably harvested lichen from England, not sheep. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/podcast.
Why just like, why now? Like,
right.
Like, I mean, here we are right before
We're losing population, not gaining.
before the playoffs, and we do this now.
Right.
Like,
right.
Why?
But I think
okay, help me understand that.
I think if I'm sitting in that seat, I think if I'm sitting in Dave Price's seat, he's executive director of WVSSAC. So if I'm sitting in the seat and I'm looking regionally and I'm saying I want to be competitive regionally, I want to pit West Virginia on the same par as Ohio, Kentucky, whatever. So I think what I'm saying is that, so I think if I'm thinking like that, particularly from a football, which we know is the cash cow, I'm saying 4A is a good idea. However, what happened is the implementation of it was beyond awful. It was beyond awful. So I think he's thinking from a regional and maybe a national standpoint that this may be a good idea to do in West Virginia, although the factors and the numbers maybe don't support it.
Me just being just a straight up athlete, all right, with no education, thought process behind this. One of the things that I'm thinking, okay, and again, I'm putting myself in his place because I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could. Why is if our numbers are low, to your valid points of dropping students, losing students, the whole thing. All this is happening, and we want to bump up. We want to go up a level. Our 4A
eliminate
teams,
single A then, because we don't have enough. I mean, if it's all about looking like we are on the same level as an Ohio or a Kentucky,
because
we're not population wise. We're not.
Yeah,
we're not
true.
even as big as they are. So then just eliminate single A and have quad A, triple A, double A.
But
and I want to say this:
if it's about image,
and again,
it's definitely about perception and image.
There's no way. I love West Virginia. I'm a West Virginia athlete, born and raised, and support West Virginia athletes. Mm-hmm. But we are not Ohio football.
No.
Okay. And just because we tag a number on it doesn't make it Ohio football.
But I'm sorry. Here's the problem. And again, I understand Mr. Price and whoever implemented it. I understand the reason, because when you're looking at West Virginia and you're looking at our border counties, so you're looking at the Wood counties, you're looking at the Eastern Panhandle, when you're looking at the Northern Panhandle, they have a market competitive advantage because with the transfer and the loosey-goosey rules now, they can get those kids from Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, D.C., Virginia. So they can get those kids potentially they can
They're
get
getting
those kids.
the ones that are not playing at that level.
They could get those kids in, and again, maybe even more well-to-do families, particularly in the Eastern Panhandle, can living like that and work in D.C. and Maryland and Virginia. Again, I don't have a problem with the 4A model. The problem is that they made the formula so convoluted and so complex that it didn't make sense, and they left themselves exposed to be attacked. What they should have did is just base it on pure enrollment numbers. Like I said, if you got 4A system, four systems, you can have 28 teams apiece in the conference. So you have 28 quads down, and one would have 29. And I'm saying you take the schools, line them up strictly based on enrollment numbers, and start cutting them off. Okay, the top enrollment here, that's quad A. Then you go down the list. So they made this formula in which they arrived at the systems too complex, and it left it open to be attacked. So it was maybe they thought too much. And then far as the implementation coming down, once you got those 11 schools that were that chose to file the injunction to go back down to class, then they didn't think that through, which we'll talk about that, and that brings us to the problem that we're at now.
Right. I'm just curious. I mean, the injunctions have been flying since August. I mean, basically.
A lawyer's dream.
Right. So my curiosity is, do other states with high school football have these type of issues? I mean, is this a common thing that happens, like in Ohio, in Kentucky, in Georgia, anywhere that they have high school football play? Is it because we've made our system so complex and so just ridiculous, really? I mean, a layman cannot understand this. I can barely understand it. There are points of it I still don't understand. So have we made it so complex that the teams don't really understand what's going on? And when they see things changing right before the playoffs and they think they're going to the playoffs, and then all of a sudden, no, you're not. You know, the point system is deemed this the way we're going to go. This injunction says this. I'm just curious, do other states have these same problems that we're facing in West Virginia? They have the same systems, right? Quad A, triple A, like you said. That's what we're trying to do to get to their level. Do they experience this?
I'm not sure on that.
I'm gonna take a huge guess at this. Okay.
Have you heard about the 2018 study that showed half of prenatal vitamins tested had unacceptable levels of heavy metals? No? Well, now you have. I'm Kat, mother of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company making traceability the new standard in the supplement industry. I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and finding all these things I was trying to avoid: high amounts of heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and unnecessary ingredients. So, at 4 months pregnant, I quit my job and started Ritual because I believe that all women deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. I'm so proud of our prenatal vitamin. The ingredients are 100% traceable, it's third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals, and recently received the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project. You see, we trace like a mother because, let's be honest, no one cares quite like a mother. But don't just take my word for it. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/prenatal.
Disfruta de un invierno más acogedor con JCPenney. Con suavecitos suéteres para damas a solo $19.99. Pijamas festivas para toda la familia con 40% de descuento. O envuélvete a ver películas en familia con una cálida manta de mink sintético a solo $24.99. Disfruta de un invierno más acogedor y grandes ahorros. JCPenney. Vale la pena. Ofertas válidas hasta el 21 de noviembre en selección de estilos. Las ofertas se excluyen de los cupones. Detalles en la tienda jcp.com.
If they do, and I'm like you, Hollis, I'm going to assume they do. But they don't have it now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They're not having it
right
the
before
week
the playoffs
of the
begin.
playoffs.
Yeah. That's probably a good point.
They're not having that
maybe
discussion
before the season
today.
started.
Yes.
Like we did.
They're going to finish the season, start that up right as soon as the end of the season, and you
So
got
is that-
all that kind
is
of
that
time
a
to work
judge
out.
kind of thing? Is that does a judge, and you should know this, right? Because you're a lawyer, and so judge. Do judges have the right to say we're going to put this off? We're going to put this on hold till after the playoffs. So why? So are they worried about their status in their county? Maybe is that why they're listening to these injunctions and following through right before the playoffs? I mean, this is a completely different conversation, but I'm curious.
But I think what happens is that generally, if a case is brought before the court, they're not necessarily like doing it that day, particularly if you're going to the circuit court or Supreme Court. Generally, like it's on the docket.
What's the urgency?
We have, but it's happening now. So generally, it's on the docket. We have time to research and do all these things. So I would imagine just the week is going to allow the court to do its due diligence as far as research and make sure they arrive at the right decision.
I think what Lisa's asking is, if I'm not mistaken, is why did this have to happen now? Why couldn't we just have waited until after the playoffs?
Because the thing is, if we waited,
those
teams wouldn't have been able to make the playoffs. They're arguing whether they want to make the playoffs because you got winning teams who have winning records from what the WVSSAC said. That's out the playoffs now with the Wood County injunction. And before we go there, let's talk about this. When you had the 11 teams. So you had 11 teams that were in Quad A and Triple A mostly that wanted to get bumped down in August. What should have happened then is that you needed conference realignment at that point because that's why we're here. Because again, you have teams like a St. Albans who are Triple A, Capital is Triple A that are basically a 4A conference. And you have to play so many conference games.
Right.
You got to play your conference. So basically, they're playing a 4A schedule. Getting beat bad. Again, not creative, competitive balance, getting beat. And then now when it comes to the point system, which we can go over if you want to.
Oh, please.
They rack up the points because they played the schedule versus a team who maybe have a winning record that played a lower schedule. And so it's like the whole, again, implementation of this was not thoroughly thought out.
Well, the point system's flawed. I'm just going to put it out there.
For sure.
To put it mildly.
For sure. But all of this is all too late. You didn't have there just wasn't enough time to make these changes, no matter who wanted to make them, why they wanted to make them. It just wasn't enough time to make this massive change of and again, to your point about realignment, I'm going to say that in a sense the 4A in their mind was their realignment.
100%. You know what I'm saying? But it needed to go thorough once the 11 injunctions happened.
Yes.
Because you can't have St. Albans and Capital basically in a conference surrounded by 4As because they have to play those teams.
Absolutely.
So again,
and your schedule's already set.
And your schedule's already set.
And the majority of those teams are now 4A teams.
Yeah.
So whether you go back down to AAA, your massive schedule is 4A.
So what should have happened is that once you had those 11 teams flip, then it should have probably been even the WVSSA could have maybe had an injunction to say, hey, look, all right, we messed it up, we screwed it up. Let's go back to the old formula. We're gonna go back to just the AAA down to single A, and then we're gonna try again this next year because that threw everything off, and that's why we're here.
How long did the teams have? I mean, when they started talking reclassification, was it just something that happened like within the the course of 12 months? Or was it something that we've been talking about for a few years? Because what you're saying is, their schedules needed to change. Schedules needed to change, and they needed time to do that. You can't change a schedule in August.
And they did not have time. When that hit,
right?
Okay, there was no time to change. The schedules were already set.
But there was no warning, is what I'm saying.
But the injunctions, I guess you could say that's the warning.
That's a big warning.
That may be the only. That might be the only thing.
Yeah.
But your schedule is already set,
right?
And so
you need to
no
give
matter
them
where
a couple
you ended
years
up.
Time
imagine a single A team that had picked up maybe like a AAA team to play, right? As an out of conference game. They could find themselves playing a ton of teams that went up, that was moved up. Yeah. You're playing out of your ranking.
And here's my point, too.
And you earn more points.
Yeah.
And here's my point. When you had those 11 teams flip, and now when you realize I only have 16 quad A schools, at that point, you should have said to yourself or somebody in the organization that said, hold up. We're going to scrap all this.
Right.
We're going to go back to the OC. We're going to put everything back because now you have a 2-8 Hedgesville team that's making the playoffs. And again, not to hate, but no 2-8 team need to be doing nothing but regrouping.
The only way a 2-8 team makes it is everybody makes it.
Yeah, or everybody make it, or maybe you got some wins disqualified or something to that effect. But if you're 2-8 legitimately, you don't need to be there. You're going to get players hurt. And it's just not, you don't need to, you need to, because again, we've suffered those 2-8, 1-9 seasons, right? Mm-hmm. And by the end of that, man, mentally, physically, you done.
You can't, if you haven't played sports and if you specifically had not played football and know what going through a losing season is like.
Getting beat up.
And getting beat up week in and week out. Trust me, I know that. I got that for 4 years at Marshall. And I can tell you, it is not pleasant.
You by that game 10, by that game 11, bro, you're done.
And you trying to rethink. Done. You trying to rethink football as a whole.
You rethinking yourself, your football.
You're rethinking your life choices.
Life choices.
Exactly.
And when you're 2-8 and you're making, that's what I'm saying. So when you're down to 16 teams, at that point, that didn't prompt you to say, look, all right, look, we tried it. We messed up. We're going to do this again. So I'm saying, again, and we're going to talk about where we're at now, but I'm saying from the very beginning, warning come before destruction. So you was warned then, and it wasn't working then, so it should have been eliminated then and just gone back.
Right out. Yes, I agree.
Well, let me do this. Let me, since I didn't do it in the opening, let me do it now. Let's Talk is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. You can visit Frank Walker at frankwalkerlaw.com for more information. You can also catch Let's Talk every Sunday at 1 p.m. and Thursday at 7 p.m. on 580 WCHS. If you want to watch any of the episodes, you can go to WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. You can follow us on Facebook at Let's Talk with Carl Lee for any updates. All right, so
you want to go over the point system right quick?
Yes,
go
ahead. Yes,
okay.
Yes, we can do that.
All right, so again, I'm looking at it right now. This is directly from the WVSSAC website. So again, you have the 4-class system. So we'll just take 4A, for example. With 4A, if you get a win against a 4A team, that's 15 points. If you play a 4A team, that's 7.5 points. For each game won by a defeated opponent, that's 1 point. So if you beat Cabell Midland and then Cabell Midland picks up a win, you get a point for their win. All right? So for each game tied by a defeated opponent, that's a half a point. So if Cabell Midland ties somebody, you get a half a point. So for each game won by a tied opponent, that's a half a point. So if you tie an opponent and then they win a game, you get a half a point. Look at y'all. For each game tied by look at this one. For each game tied by a tied opponent, you get a quarter point. So if I tie Cabell Midland.
I'm sorry. I'm not
hold on. So if I tie Cabell Midland and then Cabell Midland goes out and ties Spring Valley, then I get a quarter point. All right. For each game won by a winning opponent in a class or in its class or above, you get a 1.5. So if I'm a AAA team, I play a quad A team. That quad A team wins a game, I get a 1.5. So for each game tied by a winning opponent in a class or above, you get 7.5. So if you playing up in that team, you beat that team, and they tied an opponent, you get 3/4 of a point.
And my head officially hurts right now.
So that's the point system.
So any of our listeners, if you understand that, my hat is off to you.
We're gonna post it on your page.
Yeah, we need you. If you got that, okay, if you heard that and you understand that right off the top, please hit me up on Facebook with Let's Talk with Carl Lee, because I need you to be around me, because I'm just telling you, my brain.
I need you in my life.
Yeah, I need you in my life, because my brain cannot calculate that.
Here's the thing, though, Hollis. This has been in place for years.
Yeah.
This is not new. Like, I guess it's new to me. I didn't realize.
It's totally new to me.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I was somewhere else in this. My question is who's one, why is that the process? Like if you came in and let's just say you took over the department, okay? The WSSAC, okay? You took it over. And that's how you measure the process. When would you change that?
I would not change it, and I'll tell you why. Because
you've got to simplify this.
Outside of it being a little, like, it's a little convoluted and everything. It's like a lot. That. But
it's not a little.
In essence, here's what it does simply. It rewards you for playing the best competition possible. So it rewards you for playing up, and it rewards you for playing the best competition. We look at Fairmont East, right? The last couple years, they were a AA school, right? They essentially, what they did, they played a AAA schedule. Now, going into the playoff, at the end of the season, they like 6-4, 5-5-ish. But because they had racked up so much point, because they played up and got some wins, their seeding in the AA playoffs was high, and they ended up winning the championship that year. So in essence, what this point system allows you to do, if you play the best teams possible, and if you play up,
so the motivation, what you're saying, the motivation, what you're reading into that is the motivation of playing up.
Playing up and playing the best competition.
And playing the best competition.
So, for example, a Hurricane playing Martinsburg this year. That's not a game that you have to play.
Right.
Probably that's a game maybe you don't want to play in the regular season. But because they played that game, they get more points for playing that game. They'll get a point or two up. So it rewards you for that. So that's why I think it's a good system.
But it's also the reason we're in the mess that we're in right now, and we've got losing records possibly going to the playoffs because of the point system.
No, the point system is just the point system. The reason we're in the mess is because the realignment to Class A and the 11 schools dropping down.
But honestly, don't you think that the teams in Quad A, Triple A, Double A, Single A, they should be playing each other, possibly?
100%.
And then that should be what's going on, not just trying to rack up points and playing above your class.
Yeah, because the person who's going to be strategic, that's going to be strategic about that, and is going to do that solely for the opportunity to get into the playoffs.
Right.
But that's not it. What happened though is that if this system wasn't here, and we're saying we're just basing it off record, what's going to happen is that you're going to have a Quad A's team that's going to play the conference games that they're mandated to play, and then they would just play down, just to say, okay, then I'm 7-3.
But you can easily fix that, and we'll talk about we'll talk about that as soon as we come out of the break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, or even wrongfully arrested. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Find previous episodes of Let's Talk at WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. This is Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and Hollis has kind of dropped the bomb a little bit on this.
Why? This is a good system. I understand it totally. It makes sense.
Some of
it does what?
It totally makes sense. Like I said, it rewards you for playing the best competition possible.
I'm going to go with you, Hollis, on the part about getting points if you for winning against a 4A team. Okay, you get so many points for tying against a 4A team in your AAA or whatever. But then we're getting into for each game tied by a tied opponent, for each game won by a winning opponent in its class or above, for each game tied by a winning opponent in its class. I mean, some of this stuff is very complex for high school football. I mean, I can see a point system to a degree, but not what they've got in place here.
Is there not a system? Okay. Is there not a system, whether it's collegiate or somewhere else, before you even defend it?
I mean,
even before you defend it, I understand that. I understand that, and I don't know as a fact that what I'm getting ready to say is factual, but I'm going to make it sound like it's factual. Okay, I'm going to put it out there like it's factual.
Got great ideas, but no idea how to build a website? Get Bluehost. Their AI design tool creates high-quality WordPress sites super fast. Whether you're a blogger, influencer, or launching a side hustle, Bluehost helps boost your growth with built-in marketing and e-commerce tools. Upgrade to cloud to get 100% uptime and 24/7 security to stay online all the time. Why wait? You've got the vision. Make it real. Visit Bluehost.com to get started.
Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility. With digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing, without any distractions. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.
I'm going to make the case here that the structure in how you get to playoffs, how you do those types of things, there is a system set up somewhere, whether it's collegiate, whether it's professional, that you can follow, that does not require tied.
But here's the thing, though.
And there's no reason. There's no reason for that complication unless you want people to be confused.
But here's the thing. You're only talking about an 8-point scale. So we're only taking 8 factors into this. And again, not only does it reward your team for playing the best competition, but it also has a cyclical effect where it's saying that not only should I be playing, but you should be playing too. So basically, it's saying that we all got to play the best competition that we all can play. So I can't play the best competition and then you play sorry competition. Or see, I will say lower competition. I won't say sorry.
Wouldn't it be simple?
So it creates a situation in which everybody got to play the best out there.
Okay, and that makes sense at the college level because there's so many college programs to choose from. In high school, it's a very limited amount of teams, and so it's up to Martinsburg who they want to play, basically. I mean, they're the cream of the crop.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, you've got your AA, AAA, even as a team that wants to play them, they may not possibly be able to play them just because everybody wants to play them. You see what I'm trying to say?
That's why Martinsburg and Hurricane, they have those out-of-town games. And there's a whole different formula for that. So that's why
I can't even imagine.
So they play that good because, again, Martinsburg, they play the Virginia champs and D.C. and Maryland champs and all that. So that's why they play those games as well.
See, but there's to me, what I think, how I see it. So this conference, that conference, right? So you play your conference teams. Say there's 8 of them, okay? Yeah. Then now your next 2 teams, you could play whoever you want,
whoever you can,
right?
Yes,
big difference.
Whoever you can, whoever wants to play you, okay? Now, for those 2 games, you can choose to play up, you can choose to play down.
Nah, that's not a good system.
Well,
that's not a good system.
Listen. Because what matters, first thing that matters is your conference.
But here's the problem with that. The problem with that, if you did it that way, then essentially I could go 4-4 in my conference. I could play 2 lower level teams, and I can go 6. Now I'm 6-4. Now it appears I had a good.
But what's going to matter? What's going to matter is going to be the first thing that matters is your conference record.
Okay, the conference record matters, but let's say everybody was kind of middle of the road, or this conference maybe wasn't this good. So now I'm getting in, and I played 2 lower teams, or if everything is up. And maybe I'm 7-3 or 6-4. Now I don't even make the playoffs with a winning record because I wouldn't play those lower 2 teams.
It's that way now, though.
So what I'm saying is that I think this system fosters an environment where everybody got to play the best.
Okay, so
I like this system.
Okay, so you look at
and everybody.
I'm just going to use. I'm going to use Marshall. I'm going to use Marshall. Okay, people are upset because some people are upset because they're bowl eligible. Okay, how did they get bowl eligible? Right? What is their record? Their record is not like something in 1, right, or something in 0, right? Mm-hmm. But they made the playoffs because the structure is
the bowl.
Yeah, the bowl. Yes. So the bowl is what it is. So you get bowl eligible for this reason. I think it's very simple to make what the requirement is at the high school level to make the playoffs. You either have to do this, and that, but with that thing that you read out,
it's simple. I think you're reading a little too much into it.
No, I'm just dumb. I'm just dumb.
No, you're not dumb.
No, I don't get it.
It's simple.
No, it is not.
Like I said,
it's
an 8-point system. It's basically 8-point factors that go into
maybe
your
it worked
score.
when we had AAA, AA, single A, but now that we got quad A, it just throws it all into a mess.
Now, I would succeed that point. I will acknowledge that because of this current
it's been
system,
in place forever and no one's complained.
That doesn't necessarily, because again, you only have 16 teams in the quad A. Again, you could probably just do that by record, right? You don't need this for that. But I think that makes sense. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think the overall point, now maybe it can be simplified, maybe that.
There's no question it could be simplified.
Yeah, but I think overall I like it because again, Fairmont East was a couple years ago, they played a whole AAA schedule as basically a AA school outside of the games that were mandated, and it made them a better team.
How many? Do you know how many games are mandated to play in conference?
It depends on size. Not everybody's conference size is different.
Okay,
so that's different. So I know I want to say they played Huntington, Cabell Midland, and Spring Valley. I mean, they played a murder's road.
And the good thing about that, what I see that as a benefit is I want my team to be tested against some of the best teams. So when I play in my conference, I know what playing Huntington is like. I know what playing that team is like. So now I can tell them we can play with this team.
Yeah. So now we gave you the point system. I think we gave you kind of the origin and our thoughts, basically how this whole problem started. So now we're at the playoffs, and just to set it up and we could talk about it, you had basically 2 injunctions. You had an injunction in Wood County. You had an injunction in Mason County. Basically, the Wood County junction is that's why we went over the point system, because basically they challenged the point system. And basically they came to the conclusion that it was flawed and it didn't factor in what we just talked about as far as you playing up, down, whatever like that. So essentially what happens is that you had a school like St. Albans, 3-7, Capital 3-7, because they played basically a 4A schedule. Then they got them points
that they were
already in the conference.
Yes.
So it eliminated Point Pleasant and Hampshire County. So basically, those teams got dropped out of the AAA playoffs because of this. And you had some other schools like Westside, Tulsa, Tulsa, and I think Wayne as well. I think they're in AA. Mm-hmm. And then you had another injunction after that. So and that junction was successful. So that changed the playoff structure. Then you had another injunction in Mason County. And basically what that injunction stated was that there needed to be a playing game. So essentially the 2 teams that got dropped out of AAA, which was Point Pleasant and Hampshire County, they wanted a playing game. So I think it would be Point Pleasant versus Capital and Hampshire versus St. Albans. So those would be the 2 playing games, and then you would actually start the playoffs. That injunction was successful. So now the WVSSAC came back and they took it to the Supreme Court to drop those 2 injunctions and take it back to just the original playoffs. That was a couple weeks ago. So that's a mouthful. So this is why it's at the Supreme Court now, and this is why we have the postponement.
And we also had, I think, did you something about Wyoming County? Too?
Yeah, I didn't. I must have missed that. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I found Wyoming County's also filed another lawsuit for Westside, which was one of the schools that was bumped from the injunction granted in Wood County. So they're upset. They want relief from the injunctions, which I take that as they just want to go relief. I don't know. I think
that's what it sounds like to me.
To money maybe, or just go back to just get rid of all the injunctions is what it sounds like to me. And so then there was so that was the only one that I think that I heard. Oh, in Tulsa, you said that one though. I think that was just recent, like today. So it's a mess.
And my question is, how do you go through a season, get to the week of playoffs, and don't play? I mean, you
talking about as far as the postponement?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's a court process now.
I understand
the court
that.
Needs time.
I totally understand that. I get that. My question, my thought, my comment to this is: imagine me. You're the week of the playoffs, and you're not playing. You by Tuesday, you're not going to play a game on Friday night.
This is a great advantage. This is the ultimate advantage.
It could be.
Look, if you got players that are hurt, here's the flaw.
I get it.
Because it's going to be 2 weeks. So it has to be 2 weeks that you're going to be sick.
Yes.
Right? So for this week, I could get players healed up. I can rest
them.
Now, again, that may be that's different from team to team because some teams you need them just to go.
And
the other guys,
the other part of that is you got other sports.
You got other sports, and that's a problem too. But I think the playoffs is going to take precedent.
Absolutely,
I would say that.
absolutely.
And I think, particularly depending on where you're at, you probably have an idea of who you might end up playing. So you probably got maybe one of maybe 3 teams, right? So it's going to give you more time to develop scouting reports on these teams, and it can get players healed up if you are an injured team. So if you're like Noah Villatami at Hurricane, who has a bum ankle right now, and you out, you can sit for 2 weeks. Boy, that helps you. So I think it could be an advantage too.
And so, again, to somebody's an advantage, it's a disadvantage to somebody else.
100%.
Right.
100%.
So I look at this and I just can't. There's no way I can like it. Yeah. There's just zero chances for me to find something that's justifiable here that makes sense to me. Like, oh, this works.
So let me ask your opinion on this. And I'll ask both of you. What does the court do? Remember, we got basically 3 lingering injunctions hanging around, and we got obviously they in WVSSAC wants to take it back to the original format. So what happens?
I think it's going to go back to the original format because I just don't see them being willing to even trying to test something new now. Let's just go back to what we were doing and
then deal with it later.
Figure it out later.
Yes, that's what I see.
I think Carl's right. I mean, I think the play-in game would be probably a fair thing to do for those teams that feel like they're being slighted. But I don't know if they'll open that can of worms. I think what they'll do is just go back to the original plan and then address it in the off season.
See, I think you got to go with the Wood County. Because the Wood County is exacting correct in the formula as far as the points laid out.
So those 4 teams get knocked out?
100%. So I think, again, if the court, I'm looking at it, well, I don't necessarily want, because I think Mason County has the right idea. I think that's exacting correct.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think they ought to have the playing games just because of this. But if I'm looking at it from a judicial standpoint, I'm saying, well, I don't want to risk. That's kind of unnecessary to have that playing games. So what does the law say? What does the policy say? And the policy say the point system that we just went over. So if I'm the court, I'm looking at the policy, I'm looking at the point system, and I'm saying if Wood County has exacting correct, and this is the formula that you have based on the policies, based on the systems, based on rating, blah, 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 then you gotta. I would probably dismiss Mason County's injunction, and Wood County's will be acknowledged, and that's the ruling I would go with. So unfortunately, those teams will be out.
How long do you think it will take before the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals comes out with a ruling?
I think it was going to be this week.
I
would hope so, because these injunctions happen like within hours.
Yeah.
So I would hope that they could resolve this quickly and at least get the play. Because here's the other thing we're going to run into with, and this is a domino effect. Whenever you delay the football playoffs, and they're going to be hosted here in Charleston this year, the Super Six, and we're looking at everything being pushed out a week. Well, you've got other events going on in Charleston coming up in the next few weeks. You've got the cheerleader competition that's going to take place at the Civic Center, the state cheerleading competition. You also have volleyball, which is being affected by all this at the girls volleyball championships. That's all going to be taking place at this, around the same time. If they keep pushing it out, you're going to have issues with accommodations in Charleston, having that many people. Like we talked before, Hollis, they've got rooms blocked. For these teams coming in to do the Super Six. If you've got events going on at the Civic Center, like Ringling Brothers, the circus is coming to town in the next few weeks. Yeah. They've got, I think, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. You're going to have an issue with people trying to find accommodations and,
There's
just
not enough hotels downtown anyway.
Exactly. So, that's the domino effect of all this. So hopefully, like you said, they get this settled quickly and they can get these playoffs going next week, or it's going to become even more complicated.
And the CVB, I'm sure they had activities and everything planned out for this, the host parties and all that other stuff.
Absolutely. You have to assume that everything that was
planned.
Everything was planned out for this week.
Yeah.
For that game to show up. And all of a sudden,
everything's changed.
Everything has changed. I'm thinking that this has to be a day or so conversation.
I don't know, man.
I know.
It's a big decision.
It is a big decision.
This is set a precedent moving forward.
I just don't know how long you can wait. Like, you can't put this into a week. You can't.
Hey, you can't rush the Supreme Court.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
You ain't gonna rush them.
No, you can't. I get it. But look at what's at stake. For every couple of days that go, you can make the positive side. Or you got rest. You got time to work on a game plan against somebody else. Blah 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 blah. You got all that. But there's a whole lot of other stuff happening.
100%.
There's a kid who's on the team, plays basketball, and might be the star of the basketball team. He's gonna miss games. He's gonna miss practice, get ready to get for the games. All of those kinds of things are all lingering out there.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and I think this is a bigger conversation that's definitely a part of what's going on, because this has been a terrible high school football season for me. Like, it just hasn't been fun. I really haven't been excited about it, just because of particularly paying attention to the 4A class, because it's just been, everybody's making the playoffs, so there's no suspense, right? Has football in West Virginia become totally toxic? And I'm talking about I'm talking about from what you've talked about in a numerable amount of times, as far as the little league situations that's going on around the state. We've had discussions about the middle school debacles that's happening here, at least locally. Obviously, this whole high school thing, and even with WVU and Marshall not being able to be as competitive as we would like, just because they're playing in these distant conferences. So is football is it on a downhill? Is it just, where are we at with it?
I like your word toxic.
Yeah.
More so than downhill.
Okay.
But the hugest problem that I see from my perspective, and please take this personally if it's you. Okay, please
take it personally.
Take it personally. Okay,
take it personal.
Yeah, please. We've just lost our minds around football. Whether we coach, whether we're fans, wherever you sit, that's not on the field, don't have the whistle, don't have the hat.
And you're talking about fans, administrative, all that.
All of it.
Yes,
okay.
All of it. We've just lost our mind because we love it so much. We love football so much that we don't care about the kids.
We've become delusional.
Yeah, we don't care about the young kids. We want to win. And when I say that, I want my little group of kids to win. I want South Charleston Youth Football to win. But I'm not going to treat them, nor am I going to go crazy when they lose. Like, I want them to have the best experience possible.
Or make up stuff to just make up a whole bunch of stuff, and it just ends up clouding the whole situation.
This is what I know. Mayor Frank Mullins, he supports youth sports, funds youth sports through the South Charleston Rec Center for the sole purpose for kids to have activities, have development, and to have something to do.
Yeah.
So when they're playing football, when they're playing basketball, when they're doing those kinds of things, they're off the street. They're having fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anybody to get in the way of that. I don't want that to turn toxic. Whether it's the coach who's toxic because he wants to win, whether it's the parent who's toxic because she wants her son to play, any of that. I think West Virginia, we've overstepped our bounds in where we think we can be, what we think we can do, what we can control in the sports sphere.
We've forgotten how to celebrate the small wins.
The participation.
Just here, like what we were talking about earlier with Coach Huff.
Right.
And this past weekend, whenever Marshall won their away game, and became bowl eligible, and he was celebrating, he was happy. And you were talking about the video that you saw, and I think I saw parts of it too. But he was genuinely happy for his team that they're going to a bowl. And you've got fans scoffing at it like, well, everybody goes to a bowl now. It's not, you don't celebrate the small victories. We're not all going to be in that national championship. We're not that state yet.
Well, and
if we ever are.
And not even, let's don't even make it about our state. Let's just make it about a team. If you look at Marshall, forget where they come from, forget who the coach is. Did you see the players? Did you hear the players' voices? How happy they were, how excited they were. Shame on you if you're a Marshall fan and you ain't excited.
Yeah.
If you get that rare peek inside of a locker room that very few people get at the college level to celebrate a win.
Right.
Whether it's the only win you had, or if it's a win that makes you bowl eligible, and let's just make the case everybody goes to a bowl. But you just became bowl eligible. How are you supposed to act? Good game, guys. All right, we're bowl eligible, and let's just get ready to go to work next week. Come on, yeah. Like, come on. What do you want?
And do you think, in far as even like what happened is creating this like 4A system where we wanted more champions, we wanted more competitive. Do you think that sort of thought process spawned from parents and different things of that nature, saying, hey, we can't compete with Martinsburg. We need another class so we can have more championships. Do you think that that sentiment is pervasive even in administrative decisions?
I think that there is some of that happening, but what I try to is it's simple, Hollis. Just play, right? Just play.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, do you think that because of the nature of how we're moving as parents and overstepping our bounds as far as wanting to coach our kids in totality, that's kind of leaked into decision makers' minds to say, okay, now we have to do this because we have to appease everybody, the players, the parents, the fans.
I do think that there is this. How do we make it better? How do we make everybody happy?
Yeah.
But again, let your kid play.
But that's not where we at.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Whether we want to own it or not.
Right.
The problem is you got the dad yelling at the coach over the fence.
You ref the coach.
You yelling at the officials. You're doing all these kind of crazy stuff that does not create a positive experience for the kid who might love to play but gets tired of hearing the dad talk about how bad the coach is on the way home. My dad never said anything negative about a single coach I had. And I ain't win a whole bunch of championships or none of that kind of stuff. Why did he not have anything to say with them? My dad's thought process is you. You playing. Mm-hmm. You the guy.
But I'm saying in a modern environment,
it's
how do
toxic.
We get around that toxicity?
Football itself, it has become toxic.
Very toxic.
Because People love the game.
They love it, and it's only a finite amount.
Just a few
playing.
people can.
It's not like basketball
people,
where you're playing 30 games,
right?
So you can take some losses here and there. But I'm saying, like, how do we auto-correct this? Like, what's the solution?
If we don't fix youth sports,
that's a good point.
If we don't fix youth sports, parents, guardians, friends, family are going to tear up middle school football. And then if you don't fix it there, you'll tear up high school.
Yeah, which is tore up now. It's
tore up. It's tore up.
It's tore from the floor up.
Yeah, and the reality to that is, don't worry about college, because it ain't happening. When you get to college, you shut off. You are shut off. You get nothing.
But I would even say this about college, man, and I love Prime. But they asked Prime a question about, like, far as different teams that Shedeur and Travis Hunter would go to, and he alluded to the fact that he would potentially step in behind the scenes and say, hey, don't go here, don't draft him here, we go there. So it's like, and again, he got the grace and the talent and the cachet to maybe do that, but we got other people who maybe don't. So it's like it's going from all the way to youth to the professional level.
The question will be answered in that is really what Prime does after this season.
But it ain't about Prime. I'm not trying to make it about him. No. I'm saying we have parents now who have that same thought process who ain't Prime. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And they have that thought process from Little League all the way up.
And I don't and Lisa, I think part of that is because they think they need to. Like they need to help the coach to work with their kid. You know. Now, youth football, a lot of coaches might have played high school football, and that's the max that they play.
Right.
Some of them may not even played high school ball. But they're out there. They're giving their time. If you want to give your time and get out there, come on. But don't do it from the bleachers. Don't do it from the fence.
And that's where it starts.
Yeah, that's exactly
where it starts. And then I just wanted to add a point back to what you were saying with the toxic kind of feel we're experiencing here in West Virginia. I think what happens with fans and with the state in general, both WVU and Marshall fans, is we're comparing these newer coaches to the old coaches that were in a time that didn't have to deal with NIL. Those coaches didn't have to deal with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
They could win because the playing field was a little more even than it is now. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not talking about just being able to recruit a player because you're a good coach and, you know, the school has, you know, character. Now we're talking about how much money are you going to give me? What kind of contracts am I going to sign with if I come to your school? So comparing, you know, it's like comparing apples and oranges, the Don Nealons and the Bob Pruitts of yesterday that did have winning traditions to the Huffs and the Browns because they're in a completely different world.
That's an excellent point.
That's probably the point
of
the subject. Yeah.
Put a pin in it right there.
I mean, because...
And fans forget that. I mean, I think we all just want to win so badly, and we remember when we did.
Do they forget, or do they just
no,
not?
They forget. They forget.
They forget.
Okay, I was going to say because I think there could be the case that it's not even really relevant.
No, they forget. They forgot. Because you hear that all the time. Bring Rich Rod back. I've even said that. Bring da-da-da. But it's two different environments.
I mean, could you imagine what would be the chance of Randy Moss staying at Marshall with NIL?
No chance.
No chance. No chance.
Zero.
And his future is not going to change. But the reality of Marshall's opportunity would have changed.
Yeah.
Everything.
And again, you got a quarterback.
What happened wouldn't have happened.
Pennington, would he have stayed at Marshall?
No.
I mean, that team would have been. That team was loaded.
It was loaded. A bunch of NFL guys on that team.
Yes, it was loaded. And so there's no single way that with NIL, they stay there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm going to give another shout out real quick before we end with for Frank Walker Law, real talk, real experience, real results. For more information, you can go to frankiewalkerlaw.com. Miss Odie, Miss Lewis, Mr. Lewis.
There you go.
Mr. Lewis, great show, man. This was one that I really felt like we needed to have and kind of get kind of off the chest.
We could do 2 or 3 of these.
Yes, we really, we really could. And I'll close with this. I really appreciate the idea of the thought processes that both of you bring to the show, and I think now that we have the 3 of us all here, I think that it really gives a good balance of whatever topic that we hit. So I want to appreciate, just to let you know, I appreciate you both being here.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. We'll see you again.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
If you fall, dust it off and get back up on your feet. Anything could be a win, yup, even defeat. They say sugar bad for you, why is victory sweet? Couldn't play with big kids, I had to sit in the street and watch from a distance, but over time I grew. If I put in the work, in no time I'm due. Everything that I worked and prayed, I'm okay. If you ask me, how did I do it, I'm gon' say you gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work. 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 You gotta work.